The emergency beacon crackled through space, carrying desperation across the void. Ambassador Kalith of the Zarathi Federation pressed his six-fingered hands against the communication console, his blue-scaled face etched with worry. Behind him, the great council chamber buzzed with panicked voices from dozens of species, each representing worlds that had fallen to the Devourers. "The message has been sent to Earth," Kalith announced, his voice barely carrying over the chaos. "If the humans receive it, they may respond within 3 solar cycles." High Counselor Vexen, her crystalline form shimmering with anxiety, spoke from the center platform. "The humans are still primitive by our standards. Their technology is centuries behind ours. What could they possibly do against the Devourers that we cannot?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. The Zarathi Federation had stood for 10,000 years, bringing peace and prosperity to over 200 worlds. Their advanced energy shields, molecular disruptors, and quantum processors had made them the dominant force in this galaxy arm. Yet in just 18 months, the Devourers had swept through 47 star systems, consuming everything in their path. These creatures defied all known science. They arrived in massive bioships that seemed grown rather than built. Their hulls absorbed energy weapons like sponges soaking up water. Conventional explosives barely scratched their surfaces. Worse still, they seemed to learn from every encounter, adapting their defenses with frightening speed. "Perhaps," Kalith said quietly, "we need something other than advanced technology." The humans were a curiosity in the galactic community. They had achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago, making them practically infants compared to species like the Zarathi. Their ships were crude metal constructions powered by controlled explosions and nuclear reactions. Their weapons were simple kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives. Most civilized species had moved beyond such primitive methods millennia ago. Yet there were disturbing reports about humanity. They were the only species that had never been successfully conquered or enslaved. When the hegemony had tried to subjugate Earth 2 decades earlier, expecting an easy victory over the primitive humans, they had retreated after 3 years of brutal fighting. The official report claimed unexpected resistance, but rumors spoke of something far more unsettling. 3 days later, the human response arrived. It was not what anyone expected. "Honored Zarathi Federation," the message began, delivered by a stern-faced human woman in a blue military uniform. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your distress call regarding the entities you call Devourers. We understand they have overwhelmed your advanced defenses and consumed nearly 50 of your worlds." She paused, and something cold flickered in her dark eyes. "We also understand you are asking for our help because you have exhausted all other options. Very well, humanity accepts your request for aid. However, we want you to understand something clearly before we begin." The transmission shifted to show images of human soldiers moving through destroyed cities, their faces hard and determined. Bodies of fallen enemies lay scattered in their wake. "When humans go to war, we do not fight to achieve tactical superiority or negotiate favorable terms. We do not fight to demonstrate our technological advancement or claim new territory. When humans fight, we fight to utterly destroy our enemies. We fight until nothing remains of those who threaten us or our allies." Admiral Chen reappeared on screen. "You asked for help. What you will receive is total war. The Devourers will learn what it means to face a species that evolved from predators, a species that has turned warfare into an art form over thousands of years of constant conflict." The transmission ended with coordinates and a simple instruction: "Clear all friendly forces from the contested systems. We arrive in 14 days. The council chamber fell silent. Many representatives looked confused, others worried. How could these primitive humans succeed where the mighty Zarathi had failed? Their crude weapons and simple tactics seemed laughably inadequate against the biotechnological horrors of the Devourer swarm. Kalith stared at the blank screen, remembering fragments of intelligence reports about human conflicts, stories of cities reduced to rubble, of entire landscapes poisoned for generations, of weapons designed not just to kill but to terrify and demoralize. The humans had fought wars that lasted decades, conflicts that consumed entire continents and left millions dead. Perhaps, he thought with a growing chill, they had not asked for technological aid. Perhaps they had unleashed something far more dangerous than the Devourers themselves. High Counselor Vexen approached him, her crystalline form dimming with uncertainty. "Do you think we made the right choice, Ambassador?" Khalith watched the star map showing devourer-controlled systems, each red dot representing billions of dead. "I think," he said slowly, "we are about to find out what happens when an unstoppable force meets a species that refuses to stop fighting." Across the galaxy, on a small blue world called Earth, massive industrial complexes roared to life. Shipyards that had been dormant for peacetime began producing vessels of war. Factories retooled their production lines to create weapons designed for one purpose: complete annihilation. The humans were coming, and they were bringing with them 4,000 years of accumulated knowledge about how to kill efficiently and without mercy. The Devourers had consumed worlds, but they had never faced a species that considered total war not just an option, but a way of life. In 14 days, the galaxy would learn the difference between advanced civilization and pure, focused violence. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like a nightmare made of metal and fire. Ambassador Keyleth watched from the observation deck of the Zarathi command ship, his scaled hands gripping the railing as hundreds of human vessels materialized in perfect formation. These were not the sleek, elegant ships of the Federation. Human vessels looked like weapons that happened to fly through space. Their hulls were thick, angular slabs of armor plating. Gun turrets bristled from every surface like the spines of some mechanical predator. Massive engines glowed with nuclear fire, pushing the ships forward with raw, brutal force. "By the 7 moons," whispered Captain Thylos, a veteran of 100 space battles. "Look at the size of their weapons." The human ships mounted cannons that seemed impossibly large even by military standards. Where Zarathi vessels relied on precise energy beams and elegant particle disruptors, the humans had built guns that could fire projectiles the size of buildings. Their missile pods contained thousands of warheads, each one designed to punch through armor and detonate inside enemy hulls. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the communication channel. "Federation Command, this is Admiral Chen aboard the UES Retribution. We have arrived as promised. Please provide updated intelligence on enemy positions and capabilities." High Counselor Vexen, observing from the bridge, activated the holo display. The Kepler 442 system appeared in 3 dimensions, showing the positions of Devourer bioships surrounding the 3rd planet. The creatures had built massive feeding structures on the surface, converting the planet's biomass into more of their kind. "Admiral," Vexen said, "the Devourers have 47 capital ships in this system, each measuring over 3 kilometers in length. Their hulls absorb energy weapons and adapt to conventional explosives after the first few impacts. We estimate they have consumed 80% of the planetary population." "Understood," Admiral Chen replied. "Any civilians remaining planetside?" "Approximately 2 million refugees in the northern continent's underground shelters." There was a pause before the Admiral spoke again, her voice carrying a cold satisfaction. "Perfect. That gives us a clear engagement zone. All Federation vessels retreat to minimum safe distance. We will handle this from here." Khalith felt his heart racing as the human fleet arranged itself into attack formation. The largest vessels, massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, moved to the front. Behind them came cruisers and destroyers, their hulls scarred from previous battles. At the rear, strange ships unlike anything in Federation databases powered up systems that made space itself seem to ripple around them. The Devourers noticed the new arrivals. Their bioships began moving away from the planet, flowing through space like living things. Their organic hulls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and sensor readings showed them adapting their defenses based on scans of the human vessels. "Devourer fleet is responding," reported the Federation tactical officer. "They are forming their standard consumption pattern. Their lead ships will attempt to grapple and board while the others provide covering fire." Admiral Chen's laugh carried no humor. "Let them come. All vessels initiate Protocol 7. Authorization code Alexander November 97. The human fleet suddenly changed. What had seemed like crude simple vessels revealed hidden capabilities. Armor plating slid back to expose additional weapon systems. Missile pods extended on mechanical arms. The largest ships deployed what looked like massive metal frameworks around their hulls. "What are those structures?" Captain Thylos asked. Before anyone could answer, the humans opened fire. The sound came through the vacuum of space, transmitted through the hulls of nearby ships as gravitational waves from the massive discharges. The human weapons did not fire elegant beams of energy or sophisticated particle streams. They fired metal, lots of metal, very fast metal. The lead human dreadnought's main gun fired a projectile the size of a small building at 90% of light speed. The tungsten steel penetrator struck the closest Devourer bioship and simply erased the front third of the vessel. No energy absorption, no adaptive defense, just kinetic energy applied with mathematical precision. The other human ships fired in sequence, their massive cannons launching streams of projectiles at velocities that turned simple metal into the most destructive force in known space. The Devourer's bioships, so elegant and adaptable against energy weapons, proved helpless against chunks of dense metal moving at relativistic speeds. But the humans were just getting started. Launching Nuclear Package Alpha, Admiral Chen announced calmly. Impact in 47 seconds. Thousands of missiles erupted from the human fleet, each one following a different trajectory. These were not the clean, surgical strikes favored by Federation forces. These were weapons designed to kill everything in a very large area, then keep killing for years afterward. The Devourers tried to intercept the incoming missiles with their bioelectric defense fields. A few dozen were destroyed, but hundreds more got through. The nuclear detonations lit up the system like a second sun. The electromagnetic pulses disrupting Devourer biosystems across multiple ships. Biological weapon package deployed, another human voice reported, targeting Devourer genetic structures. Kalith watched in horror and fascination as specialized human missiles broke apart in the nuclear fire, releasing engineered viruses into space. These microscopic weapons had been designed specifically to attack Devourer biotechnology, turning their own adaptive biology against them. Within minutes, Devourer ships began dying. Their hulls erupted in pustulent sores as the viruses consumed their organic components. Ships that had seemed invincible against Federation forces were dissolving like ice in acid. The few surviving Devourer vessels attempted to retreat, but the humans had planned for this too. The strange ships at the rear of the human fleet activated their special systems, and gravity itself seemed to bend around the fleeing bioships. Space-time distortions trapped the Devourers in invisible cages, holding them in place for the human guns to finish their work. In less than 2 hours, 47 Devourer capital ships had been reduced to expanding clouds of organic debris. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Federation Command. Admiral Chen's voice came over the channel, calm and professional, as if she had just completed a routine patrol. System secured. Beginning planetary liberation operations. Estimated completion time 6 hours. Kalith stared at the tactical display, watching human dropships descend toward the planet's surface like falling stars. On the ground, the Devourers would discover what humanity had learned over millennia of warfare. Sometimes the most advanced solution was also the most simple. Sometimes overwhelming firepower was the only answer that mattered. The humans had not brought advanced technology to fight the Devourers. They had brought something far more terrifying. The accumulated wisdom of a species that had spent 4,000 years perfecting the art of killing its enemies. The planetary surface of Kepler 442c looked like something from the deepest nightmares of the galaxy, where once green forests and blue oceans had covered the world. Now twisted biomechanical structures stretched across entire continents. The Devourers had converted the planet into a vast feeding ground, their organic factories processing every living thing into raw material for their expansion. Colonel Marcus Stone stood on the deck of the dropship as it screamed through the atmosphere, watching the alien landscape through the reinforced viewports. Behind him, 200 human Marines checked their weapons and equipment with the practiced efficiency of professional killers. These were not the soldiers of peacetime Earth, but veterans of the border wars, men and women who had learned their trade fighting pirates and slavers in the outer systems. 30 seconds to drop zone, the pilot announced. Devourer ground forces are moving to intercept. Looks like they want to play. Stone smiled grimly. The Devourers had made a mistake. They had learned to fight the precise civilized warfare of the Federation, with its careful rules of engagement and concern for collateral damage. They had never faced humans who viewed war as the complete destruction of everything that threatened them. Remember your training, Stone called to his troops. These things are tough, but they bleed. And if it bleeds, we can kill it. No prisoners, no mercy, no retreat. We go home when everything that moves on this planet is dead. The dropship's cargo bay doors slammed open, and the Marines leaped into the howling wind. Their powered armor carried them safely to the ground, landing systems absorbing the impact as they touched down in a ruined city. The Devourers had left the buildings standing, but transformed them into something obscene, covering the structures with pulsing organic matter that fed on the trapped population within. Stone's targeting system immediately identified dozens of enemy contacts. The Devourer ground forces looked like insects crossed with machinery, their carapaces gleaming with biometallic scales. They moved with predatory grace, flowing around the ruins like living shadows. "Contact front," Stone announced, raising his assault rifle. "Light them up." The human weapons opened fire with a sound like thunder. These were not the elegant energy weapons of the Federation, but crude chemical propellant guns that fired bullets of depleted uranium at hypersonic velocities. The projectiles punched through Devourer armor like it was paper, sending alien ichor spraying across the rubble. But the humans had brought more than just rifles. Heavy weapons teams deployed plasma cannons that could melt through solid rock. Demolition specialists carried weapons that fired micronuclear warheads, turning individual Devourers into brief suns. Flamethrower units sprayed chemical fire that burned at temperatures hot enough to crack molecular bonds. The Devourers tried to adapt, their bodies beginning to shift and change to counter the human weapons. It was their greatest advantage, the ability to evolve defenses against any threat in real time. But the humans had anticipated this too. "Pattern Omega," Stone commanded. "Rotate weapons systems every 30 seconds. Don't give them time to adapt." The Marines switched between different weapons in rapid succession. Bullets gave way to plasma, plasma to flamethrowers, flamethrowers to explosive shells. Each time the Devourers began developing resistance to one attack, the humans changed to something completely different. It was chaos made systematic, violence organized into pure efficiency. As the battle raged through the ruined streets, human engineering teams moved behind the front lines with their own agenda. These were not soldiers but specialists, experts in demolition and environmental warfare. They carried devices that would have horrified the civilized species of the Federation. "Geological charges placed," reported Sergeant Kim Park, as she attached the final explosive to a massive biostructure. "This will destabilize the entire continental shelf when it blows." "Atmospheric processors ready," added Lieutenant Rodriguez, his team finishing work on massive chemical dispensers. "We can poison the air for anything organic in a 50-kilometer radius." The humans fought the way their species had always fought, with total commitment and absolute ruthlessness. They did not try to capture territory or negotiate surrender. They moved through the alien city like a plague, killing everything that moved and destroying everything that did not. The Devourers sent larger creatures, biomechanical monstrosities the size of buildings that had crushed Federation armies. The humans responded by calling in orbital strikes from their fleet. Tungsten rods dropped from space that hit with the force of nuclear weapons. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained but crater-filled wasteland. Within 6 hours, the human forces had fought their way to the planetary capital, where the largest Devourer processing facility converted millions of captured civilians into biomass. The sight would have driven most species to despair or rage. The humans simply calculated the most efficient way to destroy it. "Virus deployment in 3 minutes, Stone announced, watching as specialized missiles streaked down from orbit. "All personnel to minimum safe distance." The bioweapon struck the processing facility like a surgeon's knife, engineered specifically to target Devourer genetic sequences. The massive organic structure began to dissolve from within, its biomechanical components failing as the virus consumed the bonds holding them together. But the humans were not satisfied with simple destruction. As the facility collapsed, demolition teams moved in with nuclear charges, ensuring that nothing would remain that could be salvaged or rebuilt. They salted the earth with radioactive isotopes, making the land uninhabitable for anything organic for the next 1,000 years. "Sir," one of the Marines called, pointing to readings on his scanner, "we're getting life signs from the underground shelters. Looks like about 2 million civilians still alive." Stone nodded. "Begin evacuation procedures and deploy the atmospheric cleaners. We want this world habitable for the survivors, just not for their enemies." The rescue operation began with typical human efficiency, while combat teams continued hunting down the last Devourer survivors. Engineering units deployed massive atmospheric processors that would filter out the biological weapons and nuclear contamination within days. Medical teams treated the traumatized refugees with a gentleness that seemed impossible from the same species that had just demonstrated such ruthless violence. As the sun set over Kepler 442c, Colonel Stone stood atop the ruins of the Devourer command structure, watching his troops secure the final objectives. The planet was a wasteland, its surface scarred by weapons that most civilized species would never have conceived of using. But the Devourers were gone, not just defeated but utterly extinct on this world. Colonel, his communications officer reported, Admiral Chen is requesting status update. Stone activated his comm unit. Mission accomplished, Admiral. Planet secured. All enemy forces eliminated. Civilian evacuation in progress. Casualties? 17 wounded, none killed. The Devourers were tough, but they weren't prepared for human warfare. Understood. Prepare for immediate redeployment. Intelligence has identified 46 more Devourer-controlled systems. We have a galaxy to clean. Stone smiled as he looked up at the stars where the human fleet waited to carry their particular brand of warfare to the next world. The Zarathi Federation had asked for help against an unstoppable enemy. Humanity had given them something far more valuable, the complete and total destruction of everything that threatened them. The Devourers had consumed worlds, but they had never faced a species that considered genocide not just acceptable, but necessary when dealing with existential threats. They were about to learn that evolution was not always an advantage when facing opponents who refused to let anything survive. 3 weeks after the liberation of Kepler 442c, the human war machine had consumed 12 more Devourer-controlled systems. Each victory followed the same terrifying pattern: overwhelming firepower, biological warfare, and complete extermination of enemy forces. The galaxy watched in fascination and growing alarm as humanity demonstrated a capacity for destruction that exceeded even the Devourers themselves. Ambassador Khalith sat in his private chambers aboard the Federation flagship, reviewing intelligence reports that made his scales itch with unease. The humans were winning every battle, but their methods grew more extreme with each engagement. They had begun deploying weapons that the Federation had banned centuries ago as crimes against civilization. A soft chime announced an incoming priority transmission. The holographic display activated to show Admiral Chen, her blue uniform now bearing the scars of combat operations. Behind her, the bridge of the UES Retribution hummed with activity as her crew coordinated attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. Ambassador Keyleth, Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying a weariness that had not been there 3 weeks ago. I'm transmitting our operational status for Federation review. The data package arrived moments later, filled with tactical reports that read like excerpts from hell itself. The humans had not merely defeated the Devourers in each system, they had rendered entire worlds uninhabitable for any form of life. Nuclear bombardment, biological weapons, gravitational anomalies that cracked planetary crusts like eggshells. Admiral, Keyleth said carefully, the Federation Council has expressed some concerns about your operational methods. The level of destruction seems excessive. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Excessive? Ambassador, let me explain something about human military doctrine. When we identify an existential threat to our allies or ourselves, we do not fight to achieve a temporary victory. We fight to ensure that threat can never arise again. She gestured to something off-screen, and the display shifted to show tactical footage from the recent battle at Arcturus Prime. Khalith watched in horrified fascination as human ships fired what their databases classified as stellar manipulation devices, weapons, that could trigger solar flares and destabilize entire star systems. The Devourers adapt to conventional attacks. Admiral Chen continued. They learn from each encounter and develop countermeasures. The only way to defeat an enemy with that capability is to use methods they cannot possibly prepare for, methods that ensure they have no opportunity to evolve defenses. But the collateral damage, Keyleth protested. Some of these worlds could have been saved, restored to their original inhabitants. No, Admiral Chen said flatly. Those worlds were compromised. Devourer biotechnology leaves genetic residue that can remain dormant for centuries before reactivating. The only way to be certain of complete elimination is to sterilize everything. The transmission ended, leaving Keyleth alone with his disturbing thoughts. He activated his personal communication system and sent a priority message to High Counselor Vexen. The humans were winning their war against the Devourers, but at what cost to galactic civilization? Meanwhile, on the human command ship, Admiral Chen stood before a tactical display showing the remaining Devourer territories. 47 worlds remained under alien control, but intelligence suggested something far more troubling. The Devourers were not simply defending their conquered systems. They were building something massive in the Vega sector. "Report," Admiral Chen commanded as her chief intelligence officer approached. Commander Harrison activated the holographic display, showing long-range sensor readings from deep space reconnaissance drones. "Ma'am, we've identified what appears to be a Devourer superstructure in the Vega system. Current estimates suggest it's approximately the size of Earth's moon and growing rapidly. Construction purpose? Unknown. But energy signatures suggest it's some kind of manufacturing facility. Based on the scale and resource consumption patterns, it could be capable of producing Devourer bioships at a rate that would overwhelm current human fleet capacity." Admiral Chen studied the display, calculating trajectories and deployment times. If the Devourers completed their megastructure, they could replace their losses faster than humanity could destroy them. The war would shift from systematic extermination to a prolonged conflict of attrition. Exactly the kind of warfare that favored the adaptable enemy. Time to completion? Approximately 6 weeks, assuming current construction rates. Unacceptable. Admiral Chen turned to her communications officer. "Send a priority transmission to Earth Command. Request immediate deployment of Omega-class weapons. Authorization code, Damocles 77 Alpha." The bridge fell silent. Every officer present knew what Omega-class weapons represented. They were the ultimate expression of human military capability. Devices so destructive that their very existence was classified above top secret. They had been built during the darkest years of the border wars, when Earth faced the possibility of complete annihilation by alien forces. "Ma'am," Commander Harrison said quietly, "Omega-class deployment requires unanimous approval from the Earth Defense Council. Are you certain this situation justifies that level of response?" Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display showing Devourer territories spreading across the galaxy like a malignant cancer. "Commander, the Devourers have consumed 67 civilized worlds and killed approximately 40 billion sentient beings. They have demonstrated the ability to adapt to any conventional military response. If we allow them to complete this construction project, they will become unstoppable." She paused, considering the weight of what she was about to authorize. "The Federation asked for our help against an existential threat. They are going to get exactly that, regardless of the consequences." 12 hours later, the response from Earth arrived. The message was brief and carried the digital signatures of all 7 members of the Earth Defense Council. "Omega-class weapons approved for immediate deployment. God help us all." The human fleet began repositioning for the final phase of their campaign. Ships that had seemed impossibly large before were dwarfed by the vessels now emerging from hyperspace. These were not warships but mobile weapons platforms, each one carrying devices that could reshape the fundamental structure of reality itself. Ambassador Keyleth watched the human preparations from the Federation observation post, his heart racing with a fear he had never experienced before. The humans had saved the galaxy from the Devourers, but in doing so, they had revealed capabilities that made them potentially more dangerous than the enemy they had defeated. "Admiral Chen," he transmitted on the priority channel, "what exactly are you planning to deploy?" The response came without hesitation. "Ambassador, the Devourers have forced us to use weapons that were never meant to see deployment. What we are about to do will end this war permanently, but it will also demonstrate why humanity prefers to remain isolated from galactic civilization. You're frightening the entire Federation with these preparations." "Good," Admiral Chen replied. "Fear is a healthy response to what we're about to unleash. The Devourers made the mistake of thinking they were the apex predators in this galaxy. They were wrong. They're about to discover what happens when you threaten a species that has spent 4 millennia learning how to kill gods." As the human fleet moved toward the Vega system, carrying weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics themselves, the galaxy held its breath. The Devourers had asked for total war by threatening everything humanity held dear. They were about to receive it in a form that would make their own destructive capabilities seem primitive by comparison. The Vega system had become a monument to devourer ambition. Their megastructure hung in space like a cancerous moon, its biomechanical surface pulsing with malevolent life. Massive transport vessels arrived hourly, feeding raw materials into the construction that would birth 1,000 new bioships every day once completed. It was an industrial nightmare designed to flood the galaxy with unstoppable living weapons. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching her fleet position itself around the system's edge. The human armada had grown to over 300 vessels, but it was the 5 ships at the formation's heart that drew every eye. They were unlike anything in the known galaxy, their hulls seeming to bend light around them in impossible ways. Omega-class vessels report ready for deployment, her weapons officer announced, his voice tight with nervous energy. All safety protocols have been disabled per your authorization. Understood. Admiral Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We are about to deploy weapons that will fundamentally alter the nature of warfare in this galaxy. What we do here today will ensure that the devourer threat ends permanently. But it will also demonstrate capabilities that some may find disturbing. She paused, looking at the tactical display showing the massive alien construction. The Federation asked us to save them from an enemy they could not defeat. We have done exactly that. But salvation sometimes requires methods that civilized beings prefer not to witness. All non-essential personnel report to shielded compartments. Comments Operation Prometheus. The first Omega-class weapon activated with a sound that seemed to come from outside normal space-time. Reality itself groaned as the device manipulated fundamental forces that no species should have been able to control. Space around the devourer megastructure began to collapse inward, not through gravitational force but through direct manipulation of quantum field dynamics. The devourers responded instantly, launching thousands of bioships from their construction platforms. Their adaptive nature kicked in immediately, their hulls beginning to shift and change to counter what they perceived as a new form of attack. But they had never encountered weapons designed to alter the basic laws of physics. Target is attempting to adapt to quantum field manipulation, reported the science officer. Biological systems are showing signs of destabilization at the molecular level. Continue the attack, Admiral Chen ordered. Deploy Weapon System 2. The second Omega-class device activated a technology that had been theoretical until human scientists turned it into the ultimate instrument of destruction. It created localized temporal anomalies, areas where time moved at different rates. The devourer bioships found themselves trapped in pockets where seconds stretched into years, while other areas experienced millennia of time compression in minutes. The alien megastructure began to tear itself apart as different sections aged at wildly different rates. Biomechanical components that had taken months to grow withered and died in seconds, while others found themselves frozen in temporal loops that prevented any form of adaptation or repair. But the humans were not finished. Initiate reality anchor protocols, Admiral Chen commanded. I want that entire system locked out of normal space-time. The remaining 3 Omega-class weapons activated in sequence, their combined effect creating a phenomenon that Federation scientists would spend centuries trying to understand. They established what human military doctrine called a reality anchor, a region of space where the fundamental constants of physics could be altered at will. Inside the anchor zone, the speed of light became variable. Gravity reversed its polarity randomly. The strong nuclear force weakened until atomic bonds became unstable. The devourer bioships, dependent on consistent physical laws for their biological processes, simply ceased to function as their molecular structure lost coherence. The megastructure itself, a construction that had consumed the resources of dozen worlds, began to unravel at the quantum level. Its biomechanical components dissolved into their component atoms as the forces holding matter together were systematically manipulated by human weapons. My God, whispered Commander Harrison. Watching the tactical display as an entire civilization's greatest achievement was reduced to subatomic particles. We're actually rewriting reality. Ambassador Khalith watched from the Federation observation ship at the system's edge, his scaled hands shaking as he recorded what would become the most classified intelligence report in galactic history. The humans had not simply defeated the devourers, they had demonstrated the ability to control the fundamental forces that governed existence itself. High Counselor, he transmitted to the Federation capital. "The human weapons are beyond our comprehension. They are manipulating quantum mechanics, temporal dynamics, and gravitational constants as if they were simple tools. This level of technological capability suggests they have been deliberately hiding their true advancement." The response from High Counselor Vexen carried barely controlled panic. "Ambassador, our scientific analysis indicates that such technology should be impossible. How could a species so recently developed achieve capabilities that exceed our oldest theoretical models?" Kalith had no answer. The humans had revealed themselves to be far more than the primitive species the Federation had believed them to be. They possessed weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics, technologies that made even the advanced Zarathi look like children playing with crude tools. As the battle continued, the true scope of human capabilities became clear. They were not using individual weapons but orchestrating reality itself as a weapon system. The Vega system became a laboratory where physics operated according to human will rather than natural law. The few devourer bioships that managed to escape the reality anchor found themselves facing conventional human weapons that now seemed almost mundane by comparison. Tungsten projectiles and nuclear warheads felt primitive after witnessing the casual manipulation of space-time itself. Within 3 hours, the Vega system contained nothing but floating debris and quantum distortions that would take decades to stabilize. The Devourer megastructure was gone, not destroyed but literally erased from existence at the most fundamental level. "Weapon systems secured," Admiral Chen announced. "Reality anchor collapsing to normal parameters. System sterilization complete." She turned to face the communication pickup, knowing that her words would be transmitted to Federation leadership and recorded in galactic history. "This concludes Operation Prometheus. The Devourer construction facility has been eliminated, along with their capacity for large-scale reproduction. Remaining Devourer forces in other systems will be eliminated using conventional weapons over the next 2 weeks." "Admiral," came Ambassador Kalith's shaken voice over the communication channel, "the Federation Council is requesting immediate discussion regarding human weapon capabilities. The technologies you have demonstrated appear to violate several fundamental principles of physics." Admiral Chen smiled grimly. "Ambassador, human scientists stopped worrying about violating the laws of physics when we realized we could simply rewrite them. The Federation asked for help against an unstoppable enemy. We have provided that help using methods that ensure the threat will never arise again." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "I suggest the Federation Council remember this demonstration when they consider humanity's place in galactic civilization. We prefer to remain peaceful neighbors, but we are prepared to defend ourselves and our allies with capabilities that go far beyond what you have witnessed today." The transmission ended, leaving the Federation representatives to contemplate a galaxy where humanity possessed weapons that could alter reality itself. The Devourers had been defeated, but in saving the galaxy, the humans had revealed themselves to be potentially the most dangerous species ever encountered. The war was ending, but the real implications were just beginning to be understood. 2 months after the destruction of the Vega megastructure, the last Devourer stronghold fell to human forces. The war that had terrorized the galaxy for 2 years ended not with negotiation or surrender, but with complete extinction. Every Devourer bioship was destroyed, every infected world sterilized, every trace of their civilization erased from existence. The human fleet assembled in orbit around Zarathi Prime, their massive vessels casting shadows over the Federation capital world. What had begun as a desperate plea for help had become something entirely different. A demonstration of power that had fundamentally altered the balance of galactic civilization. Ambassador Kalith stood in the Grand Assembly Hall, watching as representatives from 200 worlds gathered for the most important session in Federation history. The question before them was simple in concept but terrifying in its implications. What do you do when your saviors are more dangerous than the enemies they destroyed? High Counselor Vexen called the assembly to order, her crystalline form dimmed with exhaustion. The past months had aged her considerably as she grappled with intelligence reports that defied everything the Federation understood about technology and warfare. "Honored representatives," she began, "we gather today to address the completion of the Devourer War and its implications for our continued existence. The human forces have successfully eliminated the threat that consumed 67 of our worlds, but in doing so, They have revealed capabilities that exceed our most advanced theoretical models by several orders of magnitude. The hall buzzed with nervous conversation. Every species present had received classified briefings about human weapon capabilities. They had seen footage of reality itself being manipulated like a simple tool. The implications were staggering. Admiral Chen materialized as a hologram at the center of the assembly, her image transmitted from the human flagship. She wore a simple dress uniform, her appearance deliberately non-threatening, but every being present knew they were looking at someone who commanded weapons that could reshape existence itself. "Honored Federation," Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying across the vast hall. "The Devourer threat has been permanently eliminated. All hostile forces have been destroyed. All infected worlds have been cleansed, and all traces of their biotechnology have been removed from known space." She paused, allowing the magnitude of that statement to sink in. An entire civilization, one that had seemed unstoppable just months before, had been completely erased from the galaxy. "However," Admiral Chen continued, "I understand that our methods have raised concerns about human capabilities and intentions. You asked for help against an existential threat, and we provided it using whatever means were necessary. But now you face a new question. What happens next?" High Counselor Vexen stepped forward. "Admiral Chen, the Federation has always prided itself on peaceful coexistence between species. Our civilization is built on the principle that conflicts can be resolved through diplomacy and mutual understanding. What we have witnessed in recent months suggests that humanity operates under very different principles." "You're correct," Admiral Chen replied without hesitation. "Humanity learned long ago that some threats cannot be reasoned with, negotiated with, or contained. When faced with an enemy that seeks the complete destruction of everything we value, we respond with overwhelming force designed to ensure that threat can never arise again." A representative from the hegemony worlds, their biomechanical body clicking with agitation, spoke up. "Admiral, your species has demonstrated the ability to manipulate fundamental forces of reality. Such power could be used to dominate every other civilization in the galaxy. What assurance do we have that humanity will not become the next existential threat?" Admiral Chen's expression grew thoughtful. "An excellent question. Let me answer it with a demonstration of human principles." She gestured to something off-screen, and suddenly every human vessel in the system began powering down their weapons. Massive gun turrets retracted into their housings. Energy signatures dropped to minimal levels. The reality manipulation devices that had terrified the galaxy were completely deactivated. "As of this moment," Admiral Chen announced, "all human military forces are standing down to peacetime operations. Our Omega-class weapons are being returned to secure storage facilities. Our fleet will begin departing Federation space within 72 hours. The assembly hall fell silent. No one had expected this. "Furthermore," Admiral Chen continued, "humanity is implementing what we call the Damocles Protocol. We are voluntarily limiting our military presence in this region of the galaxy to no more than 50 vessels at any given time. Our reality manipulation weapons will not be deployed outside of Sol system without unanimous consent from the Federation Council." Ambassador Kalith felt his heart racing. "Admiral, why would you voluntarily restrict your own capabilities?" "Because," Admiral Chen replied, "true strength is not the ability to destroy everything around you. True strength is the wisdom to know when not to use the power you possess. Humanity has learned this lesson through 4,000 years of warfare. We have the capability to dominate the galaxy, but we have no interest in ruling over the ashes of civilization." She paused, her expression growing serious. "The Devourers forced us to reveal capabilities we prefer to keep hidden. But now that the immediate threat is ended, we can return to our preferred position. Watchful guardians rather than active rulers." High Counselor Vexen approached the hologram projection. "Admiral, the Federation Council has discussed establishing new security arrangements in light of recent events. We would like to propose a formal alliance between humanity and the Federation, with specific protocols for future crisis response." "We would be honored," Admiral Chen replied. "But let me be clear about the terms. Humanity will assist the Federation against existential threats, but we will not intervene in local conflicts or political disputes. We are not interested in becoming the galaxy's police force. However, if another species threatens the existence of multiple civilizations, They will face the same response as the Devourers. The Assembly voted unanimously to formalize the alliance. Though many representatives did so with obvious nervousness, they had gained powerful protectors, but they had also learned that the galaxy contained forces far beyond their understanding. As the session concluded and Admiral Chen's hologram faded, Ambassador Kelleth remained in his seat, contemplating the future. The Federation had asked for help and received total war. They had been saved from the Devourers, but had discovered that their saviors possessed godlike power. Perhaps, he thought, that was the most important lesson of all. In a galaxy full of dangers, sometimes salvation came from the most unexpected sources. The humans had proved themselves to be exactly what they claimed, a species that preferred peace but was capable of unimaginable destruction when threatened. The Devourer War was over, but its consequences would shape galactic civilization for millennia to come. Every species now knew that somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity waited with weapons that could rewrite reality itself. It was a comforting thought for friends and a terrifying one for potential enemies. The humans had kept their promise. They had given the Federation exactly what it asked for: total war against an unstoppable enemy. The galaxy was safe, but it would never be quite the same again. As the human fleet departed for Earth, they left behind a simple message: we are always watching. Choose your enemies wisely. In the end, that was perhaps the most human response of all. Salvation delivered with a warning, help provided with consequences, and peace maintained through the promise of overwhelming violence against those who would threaten it. The galaxy had learned what it meant to ask humanity for help. They had received total war, complete victory, and eternal vigilance from guardians they were very careful never to anger.